maybe I was really out to lunch on the press and the hype regarding Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, but I was sorely disappointed because the game is not given the same treatment as the Final Fantasy VII Remake was back in 2020. And I had thought that this game, Crisis Core, which was originally launched way back when in 2007 on the PlayStation Portable, would get some major TLC as it was ported over to next generation systems. And while there are some improvements, absolutely, it definitely does not get the TLC that Final Fantasy VII Remake got, and as a result, I gave myself expectations that were not realistic, and the age-old quote I say at work, managing expectations. Well, I got bit in the butt because I was hyped up and excited for something that never really seemed to come to fruition. It doesn't mean it's a bad game. And if you played the PSP version, which I did not, you may look at this and go, ah, yes, what a familiar old hat. You know, the warmth and the excitement of this old hat that I used to wear when I was a kid. I'm going to put it on and look in the mirror, and I remember the fond times I had wearing this hat. But if you're like me, you're going to look at that and go, why the hell would you want to wear an old hat when you can get a shiny new one? And I think that's where the big disagreement comes as I'm reading through and watching a lot of reviews on this game, because there are those two camps. Now, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion tells the story of Cloud and Sephiroth 7 years prior to the events of Final Fantasy VII. However, Zack Fair, the guy that you really don't see a whole lot in Final Fantasy VII, is the main character here. And you're going to get to learn a lot about Zack. He's a quirky dude. And this game is very quirky. It is very much so not taking itself in the same seriousness that Final Fantasy VII did. And I think that's what makes it so challenging. You have kill streaks, or essentially these ultimate streaks, we'll call them. They're not really kill streaks, right? Where you'll pull out your flip phone and a helicopter will come down and shoot enemies. Or you'll start doing squats during a somewhat serious cutscene because you want your character to stay in shape and be fit and be a hero that he knows he can be. And a lot of the writing just comes off as very quirky, and there's not that levity, and there's not that sense of seriousness that I felt really grounded some of the odd elements of other Final Fantasy games. This game is very much so a port of a mobile game at a time when the PlayStation Portable was really trying to figure out what it wanted to be. And you have these elements where it looks like it's going to start to turn into a serious game, and then the story will take a wild swerve in a very goofy direction. And it's unfortunate. And there's a lot of mobile filler in the game in the form of these small missions, which you're looking at me playing right now, where you're going to basically go into a corridor and fight 2 or 3 sets of enemies to unlock treasure and begin to level up your character. These side missions don't add any story elements to the game at all. They're purely something to do if you're bored, I guess, or to level up your character, or if you're an achievement hunter, or whatever. Now, the combat is fun and it looks gorgeous. And one of the areas where this game actually did receive some TLC from the original port, obviously making it 60 frames a second, running at a very, very nice, vibrant picture with lots of sparks and special effects and all that cool stuff. Awesome. I love it. The combat definitely feels very fast and fluid. There's not a lot to it, though. You have an attack with your weapon. You can use a magic spell, or you can roll around and guard. That's really it. Now, where the variant in combat comes is in that slot machine in the upper corner, which you have no control over, by the way. But basically, think of it as, and I've seen other reviewers call it this, and I think it's a clever name, the kind of gold saucer variant of each combat. That slot machine will do random things. It may give you a level. It may give you an item. It may make your next attack free. It may make your next magic spell cost nothing. It may make you invincible. It may make you call down a monster of a summon like a Bahamut or Ifrit to destroy enemies. Or you may do some really cool limit break attack like Omni Slash or Airstrike. All of which are devastating and so much fun to watch. But you don't know. That is the real variant in the combat. And it's feast or famine. You could be fighting your brains off, rolling around, doing the best you can, and you're just never going to get luck from this thing. Or you may pull off like the most insane one-sided combat of all time. And it is a fun variant, but it does kind of overstay its welcome when you realize that there's no perfect parry, which was a mechanic that didn't exist in 2007. But in every single modern game today, for the most part, perfect parry is absolutely something that exists. It's that ultimate risk-reward of blocking at the absolute last second in order to pull off a devastating attack. Rolling around at the last second doesn't give you any sort of advantage because enemies just instantly lock onto you and target you for the next attack. So it's very rare that you're going to, get them out of position, so to speak. Hitting an enemy in the front versus in the back, or targeting a specific part of an enemy's body doesn't really seem to do much of anything other than just put numbers on the screen. And it's this kind of dopamine hit of just spamming attack while you're waiting for the slot machine to give you the next cool thing, hopefully, that will turn the tide of combat in your favor. And that is about like 80% of the game is combat, because the story elements, while there are some, again, written for a mobile audience, they're short and to the point. You can blow through them very quickly. 1 or 2 single lines of dialogue. There are some phenomenal cinematics that are inserted in here. Direct ripoffs, by the way. I mean, exactly ported over from the PSP. So don't expect some crazy new, 4K image. They're upscaled. You can tell they're blurry. They don't look quite right. Sometimes the gameplay looks a little off because they're using a lot of old assets, and they did wrap it around with this, the Unreal Engine 4 wrapper, and they did get some elements from Final Fantasy VII, like the voice actors who played the characters in those games. But ultimately, a lot of the game just feels kind of like they could have done better. They could have done more, and I wanted them to do more, and I wanted this to really kind of stand and a pillar in the way that the other Final Fantasy VII Remake games are starting to, as this really fresh original tale. But they're not doing that here. Instead, what they're doing is they're just kind of doing a cheap cop-out, and they're just kind of copying and pasting what was in the old game and bringing it over to the new game. And yes, you have a new menu system. You have the aforementioned combat system, which is fun, but that's it. That's really it. Everything else is the old stuff, and it looks and feels dated. Constant little loading screens. Constant, very small, segmented, bare, boring areas to explore. When I heard we were going to get to walk around in Midgar, I was super excited. I wanted to see what I could explore in Shinra's building because I'm looking at it from a different perspective. You go down Loveless Avenue and you're going to get to see some of the cool posters and street signs and stuff that we were teased at the beginning of Final Fantasy VII. And it's like 2 small sections to explore. There's a couple NPCs you can talk to that repeat the same boring dialogue. It adds no flair element to the game at all. And ultimately, it falls flat on that level specifically. The other saving grace that I need to mention, and one that is really, really fun, is the materia fusion system, which basically allows you to take different pieces of materia that you will unlock throughout the game, mix and match, and create new things. You'll be able to create different spells and different modifiers to kind of spice up combat because it really needs it. And you'll be able to pull off some pretty devastating attacks and spells as you progress through the game. And that's where, when you get the slot roll that gives you free MP for 10 seconds, that may be awesome because you've got some really cool spells that you're going to be able to drop bombs on people and have a lot of fun with that. And I do enjoy that. But ultimately, it doesn't really save the game because it's so... There's nothing that's epic or exciting after a while. The soundtrack, the music that plays in the background, it's like a 20-second little snippet of generic rock music or generic blues music. You don't get that heart or the soul that you got in the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, and that is disappointing. So I was hoping for more. I didn't get it. Shame on me. Apparently this was advertised exactly as was, but again, me being a dumbass, not looking into it, just seeing, oh my God, we're getting new Final Fantasy. I need it. I want to inhale it, absorb it. It's My favorite game of all time. I want more. I want to understand more of this universe, connect with the characters, live those epic stories, understand the history of the Buster Sword, understand this history of Zack Fair, his love with Aerith. All these things, just go down the checklist. This game will answer those questions, but not in that, oh my god, like blockbuster saga way that I wanted. That's why I'm calling it Crisis Bore. Get it? Get it? Anyways, I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Did you play it? Did you enjoy it? Did you pass on it? I've already talked one of my friends into not getting it, and I feel kind of bad. So don't worry, Sid. When I am completely done with this game, because I'm like pretty much there, I will absolutely let you borrow it, and then you could tell me what you think about it. But for everyone else who hasn't yet played this, who might be on the fence, this game, which is currently, I believe, $50 US right now. I did get it with a Steelbook, so I don't know if that altered the price or not. I don't know if it's worth that. I think this is more of like a $20 or $25 game based on the very limited effort that went into it. But those are just my thoughts, so leave yours below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.